Good morning, students. It's our next topic of the chapter number 2, freedom or liberty. In our previous class, we already discussed about the positive and negative dimensions or concepts of of freedom in a democracy. In this portion, we will discuss about the various concepts of freedom, means the freedom as a liberal perspectives, means liberals they do not believe in the absolute liberty. Okay, they believe that law and liberty are not opposed to each other. In fact, law provides the rational grounds and guarantees of freedom. Okay, means judiciary and law provide us the basic rights and secure our life and provide the guarantee of a right, means right to equality, right to freedom, right to justice and all that. Liberals believe that existence of the state is extreme necessity. The restricts means the state restricts the liberty of individuals so that the freedom of others may be safeguarded. Means the state marks some limitations of the individuals, so the next person use her or his own liberty. Liberals believe that the views of individuals should not be suppressed as a man has the ability to think and express the rationality. Means here the growth of individuals' ideas, individuals' demands are necessary, must. They also focus on the free market activities where the state, means the authority, should play the role of only a facilitator, means provide the various platforms for the growth, and not a regulator, means not a dominating figure. Democratic federations, means the division of powers. Liberals advocates for a democratic federation where powers are divided between the center and the state and the people at the local level. Means there are three tiers of the government, then the center government, state government and local government according to the list, yani state list, union list and the concurrent list. And local government also get an opportunity to express their participation, their views and best use of the alternative sources. Liberals believes in the certain creation of an independent and impartial judiciary separated from the legislature and executive to ensure the freedom of individuals. Means there is no domination or no interference in the judicial powers and process. Means the independentness of judiciary is must to maintain the decorum of the nation. Now the present days liberalism realized the need of the welfare state and acknowledge the necessity of insurgents to reduce the socio-economic theory. Now the next is the Marxian prescriptives, means the person or the philosophers who believe in the theory of Marx. They describe that freedom is not preserved in terms of man's purpose and values. Means it is natural, it is not anyone's property. Here the humans, they have their own opinion and their respect for their own values. Focus on all ground development, means overall focus they overall focus on the growth and development of the human's personality. Freedom is not possible in the class division or in the capitalist society. They reduce to influence of the capitalist society. These societies promote exploitation, oppression and alienations. Means they show their domination on the various factors. Labor is bound in chain, treat like a cog in the machine in the capitalist society. Means the leader, the authority, the industrialist, the investors, they deal laborers as their own slaves in the present scenario also. So they reduce the influence of this capitalist society. They demand to change the social relations, social economic relations, means the relation of rich and poor. They show their desire to change these type of relations. Freedom would come when workers would unite collectively and overthrow the capitalist society, the capitalist, through a violent revolution, means through the trade unions, they continuously make their demands in front of the industrialist, so they can easily reduce or remove the influence through these revolutionary ways. Now the freedom is possible only in the communist society, where the means of production are owned by the community, means they abolish the various factors of the private property, they refuse to the influence of the private property. Freedom would come when the classes would disappear and the dictatorship of a particular class is removed. Gradually it would transform itself into the classes or the communist society, where everyone would get according to his need and ability, means they focus on the communist society, not in the private ownership, the private society. Now, do we have needs of the constraints, of the limits? Yes, of course, a person cannot live without few limits, without the limitations or the constraints. Constraints help to prevent the anarchy and the chaos. People have conflicting ambitions, and for a number of reasons they may disagree. We often see people fight for road range, parking space, disagreement on the screening of film, caste, religion, superiority, for the public properties, for their own. For example, in our gullies and mohallas, they fight for their own parking space. So these are the very common things. So as long as people respect to each other's views, conflict are less likely to happen. But a society without conflict is an idealistic situation. But everyone desire to express his own views, opinions, and beliefs. We often find it very difficult to accept others' views. In such situation, we need some legal and political limitations to stop the forceful imposition of one's own view on the others. He may be very powerful, that is why they impose the various restrictions on the others, but we should stop it. Or without restrictions, we cannot find a peace or a just society. Now, how are the reasonable restrictions on the individual's liberty? How are the limits we mark, or who would control it? Freedom or liberty is essential for the personality development of the an individual, because it maintains peace in our society, and that peace provides various platforms for the growth and development. It enhances the unity. So an individual has certain self-regarding areas which do not affect the lives of other citizens. Individual freedom includes these self-regarding areas, which include rights to earn a living, a freedom of marriage, good standard of living, right to education, and some other basic rights, means right to speech and all that. These are the areas which affect the life of an individual, and state has no right to interfere in these spheres of an individual's life. An individual should be allowed to full freedom in the development of these spheres of personality. Here the Mill also describes that the state should not interfere in the self-regarding spheres. State should interfere only if an individual's freedom hinders the freedom of others regarding actions. Means the state and the authority only interfere in that condition where an individual show himself or herself a dominating type of figure. In that condition, state should interfere in that. Now some conditions for the essential for preservation of the freedom. In this we have so many points that democratic form of government, written constitution, and fundamental rights help to prevent these type of conditions. Then the decentralization of powers, the independent role of a judiciary, strong opposition political party, the freedom of press to share the opinion, rule of law, and enlightenment of the public opinion. Now the democratic form of government freedom is possible only in a democratic form of government, where people have the right to participate in decision making process through their elected representatives, means a indirect involvement in decision making. Dictatorship in a dictatorship type of form of government, it is not allowed. People do not get freedom, as the government is based on the command of the leader. Now the written constitution, in a written constitution, it plays a role of safeguards the rights and the liberties of the individuals. Rights are the basis of freedom. Rights guarantee the freedom by making the justable or acceptable in the court. Centralization of powers put a limit on the freedom of an individual, and decentralization of power is the best guarantee of for freedom or liberty of individuals. This is done by dividing the powers of legislative, executive, and judiciary, and this is known as separation of powers, also it is called. Now the further powers are divided between the center and the state government to establish a strong federation, and it after 1993, 92, 1993, it is also divided in the form of a local government. So this type of freedom is also preserved by giving more autonomy and participation of people through the local self government. Now the independentness of the judiciary and the impartial judiciary, we can say, it is the best guarantee of individual freedom. Judiciary act as the custodian of the fundamental rights, means preserve the fundamental rights as parents, play a role as a parents. Judiciary also keeps a check on the legislature and executive through its power of judicial review and process of judicial activism. It is the best guarantee for protection, preservation, and promotion of individual freedom and liberty. Now a strong opposition political parties always play a very different and important role to adjust the domination or control the autonomous domination of the ruling party. Means the opposition plays a vital role in a democratic state. It keeps the government on a very controllable situation. It acts like a watchdog on government, both inside and outside in the parliament. Anti-people policies of the government and guarantees the public opinion on it. The opposition political party always criticize both the terms. Now, no government can ignore a strong opposition, as it provides an alternative to it, and it also provides a vital link between the people and the government. Now the free press, it allows the mass media like the TV, radio, newspapers, etc., without much restrictions. Independentness or freedom of press strengthening the freedom of the people, and it makes a democracy very successful. Now the rule of law. A democratic state is based on the rule of law, or it keeps a check on the arbitrary powers of the state. The law does not discriminate between people on the basis of their caste, their color, their creed, their sex, their religion, their region, their customs, their traditions, etc. All people are equal in the eyes of law. It helps in preservation of freedom by establishing rule of law as decent from the arbitrary or the dominating laws imposed in the dictatorial states. Now the internal vigilance is the price of liberty. It is said by the great philosophers, and it means that people should always be alert to preserve their own freedom. It enlighten the public opinions. For this, it is essential, or it is must or required to have an enlightened people, or public opinion means the awareness of people is must here. So various agencies like the mass media, the literary work, the associations, the political parties, the educational institutions helps in generation of this type of generating this type of public opinions. The curbs on any agency would act as a hindrance in a way of sound this public opinion. So the above or these discuss these points are the essential to provide freedom. The absence of any one of these points or these conditions restrict the freedom of an individual. The limits of freedoms are defined by the constitution. Means constitution also describes that there is some restrictions, there is some limits on the this type of power or this liberty. Now the freedom of expression, freedom of speech. So for in this purpose, J.S. Mill describes a great political philosopher. Mill is of 19th century. He described that he was a passionate definer. He described about the liberty, 4 reasons of liberty in his book on liberty, and he is saying that there is nothing called totally false idea. Okay, means no one is perfect, we can say. Even such ideas may contain truth. If they are banned, the elements of truth is false idea would be lost. Second, he described that truth does not ignorate or originate by itself. Only the contradictory expressions of ideas leads to emergence of truth. So the ideas may be wrong, but they are valuable as they lead to right ideas. The conflict on ideas is relevant for all times to come. Truth always has the risk of being reduced to unthinking desires. It is only when truth is exposed to the contradictory or conflict type of ideas that is regarded as trustworthy. Now the last is, it is not necessary that that what we regard as truth may always be true. Often many ideas which were described at that point of time may be true later. Thus, if ideas are suppressed, true knowledge may not appear. So through these types of points, Mill's views, it is clear that people should have freedom of expression. Opposition to ideas has always been there. Means critics are always be with us in our society. Now the last topic of this chapter is limitations on the individual's freedom. Means who mark the limitations on the individual's freedom? Is there any institution, is there any means we can say that any point who marks the limitations on this portion or this individual's freedom? The first one is the state security. Second is the initiation of an offense, means giving air, we can say that hawa dena. Okay. Defamation, the public decency or morality, the public order, the friendly relation with the foreign countries, the contempt of court, the sovereignty, the unity, the integrity of India. So first we will discuss about the state security. So in this, the state security, we can say that if it is preserved, that an individual's freedom chased real and potential of threat to the security of state, his freedom can be curbed. This is even includes the grounds of suspensions or suspicious conditions. If any individual instigate internal strikes against the countries, or his freedom is likely to be curbed. The state security comes before an individual's freedom, and individuals are forbidden from doing any task which hinders the security of the country. Means which is a person who is look like as a threat. So state have a right to control it. Now, the people do not have the freedom to incite people for an offense. The Constitution has made penable provisions for people enacting an offense. Now, the defamation, if any statement of or the any demand or defames a person in a society, it is treated as a punishable offense. Means we don't have a right to speak a single word without having any type of such proofs and all that. So such a defamation may make the person unpopular or a laughable character. No statement or publication should be make a mockery of any person to promote the hatred against him. And if such a defamation take place, a person can claim the compensation for that defamation under the section 499 of the Indian Penal Act. 499 at the Indian Penal Act. Now the public defense or the morality, or what is the role of a citizen. The state has full right to prohibit or place restrictions on any publications which violates the public morality in our society. Means the public order. Freedom can even be curbed to maintain the law and order in the society. Any action which violates the public order leading to violence and terror in society is punishable by the law. This we can say that this may include the initiatement and the communal, the casteism, the linguistic basis, the regional basis, the passion, the amounting to violence or acts encourage the Naxalite violence and the terrorism. So for these in India, CRPC section of 114 allows the magistrate to ban any such assemblies or the conferences which he thinks may disturb the public peace and others. Means the Act 144. In a simple language we also called is Dhara 144. It is very common. So friendly relations with the foreign countries, the state empowered to place any such restriction on the freedom of an individual which may hamper the country's friendly relations with other foreign states or may be a threat to the country's foreign policies. Or contempt of court means the parliament through an amendment, constitutional amendment of 1971 defined the provisions related to the contempt of court. It includes the civil and criminal matters both. In civil matters it is related to contempt of court includes the disobedience of the courts or of an honorable court. And criminal matters it includes the public criticism of judiciary or working of a judge or undue type of influence upon the judiciary's or judicial work or or its own instructions. Next is the government may be ban such statements, publications and speeches which threaten the sovereignty, unity and integrity of the country. People or the freedom of the speech expression should not be used to threaten the unity and the integrity of its nation. So on the basis of these points we can say that we have or our means overall the state and authority have a right to control these type of acts.